Chosen ones, I come to you not in weakness, but in divine authority. I come as a guardian, a warrior of light, and a messenger of heaven's command. There are moments when God calls you to speak, and there are moments when God commands you to be silent. This is one of those sacred moments. Heaven is issuing an instruction, not a suggestion. For the next 48 hours, God is calling his chosen to enter holy silence, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening. In the unseen realm, battles are shifting, alignments are being rearranged, doors are being unlocked that no human hand could open. Silence is not punishment. Silence is preparation. Silence is protection. Silence is power. In this divine quiet, God is separating voices from noise, faith from fear, and destiny from distraction. What he is about to release into your life requires spiritual sensitivity, not emotional reaction, and sensitivity is born in stillness. Chosen ones, the instruction is clear. Step back, grow quiet, guard your words, and watch how heaven moves on your behalf. Chosen ones, understand this truth, written not in ink, but in eternity. Silence is not surrender. Silence is not fear. Silence is not weakness. Silence, when commanded by God, becomes one of heaven's most powerful weapons. I speak to you as one who has stood in the midst of celestial battles, where worlds shifted without a single human word being spoken. Not every war is won with thunder. Not every victory is born from shouting. There are realms where the loudest force is restraint, and the sharpest sword is obedience. There are moments when heaven calls you to declare, to decree, to prophesy, and there are moments far more dangerous, far more sacred, when heaven commands you to close your mouth, still your reactions, and let God move without interference. These are not ordinary moments. These are strategic windows. These are divine ambushes against darkness, because the enemy studies your patterns. He listens to your words. He tracks your emotional reactions. He feeds on premature declarations, emotional outbursts, and careless speech. But when God instructs silence, heaven is cutting off the enemy's intelligence. Your quiet confuses demonic systems. Your restraint disrupts familiar cycles. Your obedience collapses monitoring spirits that have depended on your predictability. You believe warfare is only shouting, binding, rebuking, and commanding. But heaven knows another dimension of war, the war of non-response, the war of guarded presence, the war of inner stillness while God himself fights in the open. When God says, "Be silent," he is not removing your authority. He is shifting its expression. He is teaching you that sometimes your highest authority is not in what you release, but in what you refuse to release. Because every word carries alignment. Some words align you upward. Others pull you into lower realms of fear, explanation, defense, or justification. And there are seasons when God is lifting you into a higher operation, one where explanations are no longer required and reactions are no longer permitted. Silence becomes warfare because it starves chaos. Darkness feeds on emotional noise. It feeds on complaint. It feeds on the need to be understood. It feeds on impulsive speech. But when you become quiet before God, you remove the fuel. You step out of the frequency that sustains interference. In silence, you are no longer leaking power. In silence, your spirit stops hemorrhaging energy through unnecessary conversations, arguments, and mental negotiations. In silence, heaven gathers what you have been spilling. Do you know why many victories delay? Not because God is slow, but because his people keep entering battles he never assigned them to fight. They defend what he never accused. They explain what he already sealed. They argue with doors he already closed. They announce what he was still forming. And every time they speak out of season, they reset the battlefield. But when heaven commands silence, God is stepping forward as your defender. There is a realm where God says, "Stand still and see." Not speak and prove. Not shout and convince. Not explain and persuade. Stand still. Stillness is not inactivity. Stillness is alignment. And alignment is lethal to darkness. Because when you are aligned, you are untouchable. What attacks you must pass through God's presence first. What rises against you must answer to heaven's authority before it ever reaches your life. Silence is warfare because it places the battle where it belongs, out of your mouth and into God's hands. And understand this: some battles fail because you kept talking to what God was already judging. You negotiated with what he was removing. You reasoned with what he was overthrowing. You gave attention to what he wanted starved. Silence starves distractions. Silence weakens false influence. Silence dissolves unauthorized connections. In these 48 hours, heaven is not calling you to become empty. Heaven is calling you to become internally occupied. While your mouth rests, your spirit sharpens. While your reactions cease, your discernment increases. While your explanations die, your authority matures. There are operations of God that cannot descend into noisy vessels. There are strategies of heaven that cannot be entrusted to unguarded tongues. There are deliverances that abort when announced too early. So God says, be silent, not to suppress you, but to shield you. Because what is coming next in your life is weight-bearing, and weight-bearing revelations require fortified interiors. Silence is the womb of power. Silence is where heaven loads you. Silence is where angels receive new instructions concerning you. Silence is where chains are dissolved without confrontation. Because not every demon must be cast out publicly. Some are simply reassigned when God enters the atmosphere. Some flee when a higher order arrives. Some collapse when access is revoked. Your silence revokes access. It removes you from unnecessary realms. It lifts you above conversations that dilute destiny. It places you into the dimension where God speaks without competition. In silence, heaven fights without interference. And here is the mystery: when you become quiet before God, you become loud in the spirit. Your stillness releases frequencies that move angels. Your restraint sends signals into the unseen. Your obedience authorizes interventions you will never have to manage. The greatest spiritual warriors are not the loudest. They are the most governed. They do not speak to feel powerful. They speak because heaven assigned the sound. And when heaven assigns silence, they obey with the same intensity they would a command to shout. Because they understand God is about to do something they are not meant to narrate, only witness. So, chosen ones, your silence is not retreating from the battlefield. Your silence is stepping into a higher command center. Where God speaks, angels move, darkness reorganizes, and outcomes are decided before the conflict ever manifests. Remain still, remain guarded, remain aligned. For in this holy silence, heaven is executing warfare on your behalf. Chosen ones, there are movements of God that do not announce themselves with noise. They unfold in the hidden chambers of the unseen, where heaven rearranges destinies long before the earth ever witnesses the result. What you are sensing now, the strange pauses, the emotional stillness, the sudden disinterest in what once consumed you, the quiet pulling away from certain people and patterns, is not confusion. It is not loss. It is not delay. It is divine realignment. I speak as one who has watched God reposition stars, shift kingdoms, and reroute histories without consulting human expectation. And I tell you in truth, whenever God is about to elevate a chosen one, he first realigns their environment, their connections, their timing, and their inner world. Realignment is heaven's mercy. Because God will not take you into a new dimension with old structures. He will not pour future authority into past frameworks. He will not crown you in the presence of what can contaminate what he is about to release. So he moves quietly. He begins where you cannot see. He touches what you did not think was connected. He removes what you were still tolerating. He delays what you were demanding. He accelerates what you were not watching. Divine realignment is not cosmetic. It is architectural. God is not decorating your life. He is restructuring it. In this hour, heaven is shifting foundations. Foundations of belief, foundations of identity, foundations of relationships, foundations of direction. Because the level you are approaching cannot be sustained by who you used to be, what you used to accept, or how you used to move. And so God, in his precision, begins to adjust the unseen lines that hold your world together. He moves people out of your emotional orbit, not because they are evil, but because they are misaligned. They were correct for a former season. They are incompatible with the next. And compatibility in the spirit is not measured by history, but by assignment. Some connections were nourishment. Some were training. Some were protection. Some were mirrors. But not all were permanent. Realignment means heaven is deciding what can travel with you and what must remain behind. And God does not argue his separations. He enforces them. You may feel friendships thinning, conversations losing substance, familiar places losing resonance, desires dissolving, ambitions shifting shape. This is not emptiness. This is recalibration. Heaven is tuning you to a higher frequency, and anything that cannot rise to meet it will naturally fall out of range. Divine realignment also touches timing. What once felt urgent now feels distant. What once moved easily now meets resistance. What once was closed now begins to breathe. God is not inconsistent. He is repositioning you into sync with an order of events that requires different pacing. Some of you are being slowed, because if you arrive early, you will bleed. Some of you are being delayed because if you receive it now, it would deform you. Some of you are being accelerated because the window has opened, and heaven is clearing the path. Realignment adjusts your internal clock, so you stop chasing what is no longer scheduled, and you start recognizing what heaven has just placed on your horizon. Divine realignment also governs exposure. God is relocating what has access to you, what influences you, what speaks into you, what feeds your inner life, what drains you, what disturbs your peace. Because the next phase of your assignment requires greater spiritual hygiene, lesser influences that once had permission will not survive this recalibration. Heaven is narrowing your gates, refining your inputs, guarding your sensitivities, not because you are fragile, but because you are valuable. And what is valuable must be protected from contamination, not just attack. So God rearranges atmospheres. He rearranges daily rhythms. He rearranges emotional appetites. He rearranges even the way you rest, the way you think, the way you process disappointment and hope. Realignment also corrects identity. Many of you are being quietly separated from who you thought you were, from labels that once defined you, from roles you outgrew, from survival patterns that kept you alive, but cannot take you forward. God is not merely changing your circumstances. He is upgrading your self-recognition, so you no longer see yourself as the wounded one, the overlooked one, the struggling one, the waiting one, but as the aligned one, the prepared one, the positioned one, the entrusted one. Divine realignment is heaven editing your self-concept, because authority flows most easily through those who recognize what heaven has called them to carry. You will notice you no longer resonate with conversations rooted in victimhood, chaos, or spiritual immaturity. Not because you are superior, but because you have been repositioned. Your spirit is being trained to dwell where clarity is normal, peace is expected, and discernment is required. Realignment also rearranges battles. Some conflicts disappear without explanation. Some attacks lose their intensity. Some oppositions simply dissolve. This is not because the enemy became merciful. It is because heaven relocated you. There are battlefields you outgrow. There are confrontations that expire when you change altitude. There are oppositions that cannot breathe where God is taking you. So God does not always rebuke the enemy. Sometimes, He moves you beyond his reach. Divine realignment is often misunderstood because it rarely feels like triumph while it is happening. It feels like neutral ground, like unfamiliar territory, like a strange quiet where old signals no longer register and new ones have not fully activated. This in-between is not abandonment, it is transition. And transitions are holy because they are the corridors where God carries you from what was into what must be. Here, God dismantles attachments that would sabotage future stewardship. Here, He detoxes emotional dependencies. Here, He uproots subtle compromises. Here, He strengthens internal government. Here, He trains you to live without leaning on former crutches. So when the next doors open, you enter upright, clear, governed, undistracted, uncontaminated. Divine realignment is God loving you enough to not let you arrive wrongly, to not let you bring unresolved structures into elevated assignments, to not let you repeat cycles on higher stages, to not let old mindsets manage new mantles. So He pauses you, quietly adjusts you, gently distances you, firmly redirects you, and strategically positions you until your inner world matches where your outer world is going. Chosen ones, Do not resist this invisible work. Do not rush to rebuild what God is dismantling. Do not chase what is being removed. Do not grieve what heaven has outgrown. Because what is happening now is not subtraction. It is configuration. Heaven is arranging you into a pattern that can host what is coming. And when the realignment completes, things will not have to struggle to enter your life. They will recognize you. They will locate you. They will align with you. Because heaven will have already aligned you with them. Remain yielded. Remain attentive. Remain unafraid of the quiet shifts. For divine realignment is taking place, and when it finishes, your life will function with a precision you have never known. Chosen ones, there are words that create, and there are words that collapse. There are declarations that summon heaven, and there are sentences that give darkness legal ground. Speech is never neutral in the realm of the spirit. Every word releases alignment. Every sound carries authorization. Every statement either shelters what God is forming or exposes it. I speak to you from the courts of heaven, where words are weighed before they are heard, and intentions are examined before they are spoken. And I tell you, one of the greatest mercies God extends to His chosen is not teaching them when to speak, but training them when not to. Because premature speech is one of the most common ways destinies are delayed, not destroyed, delayed, bent, complicated, burdened. You were never meant to explain what God had not finished. You were never meant to announce what heaven had not sealed. You were never meant to defend what God had not yet revealed. But many have spoken out of excitement, fear, loneliness, or the need to be validated. And in doing so, they exposed holy processes to unholy interference. What God is birthing in you now is sensitive, not fragile, but sacred. And sacred things are not placed in open air before their time. They are concealed. They are incubated. They are guarded. Because in the unseen realm, attention is access, and access determines influence. When you speak too soon, you invite voices God did not assign, opinions that do not carry wisdom, jealousy that does not need to know, doubt that feeds on details, resistance that forms strategies around your confession. Not everyone who listens is neutral. Not every ear is innocent. Some here to celebrate, some here to sabotage, some here to compete, some here to monitor. And this is why heaven trains the chosen to seal their mouths in certain seasons, not to isolate them but to protect them. Because before manifestation comes formation, and formation must be hidden. In the spirit, everything grows first in darkness. In the womb, in the soil, in concealed places. And when you pull it into the light too early, you interrupt its development. God knows when something in you has bones. He knows when it has breath. He knows when it has skin. He knows when it can survive exposure. And until then, silence becomes your shield. Premature speech is dangerous because it forces what is still becoming to defend itself. And what is still becoming was never meant to fight. It was meant to mature. There are revelations God gives you that are not meant to be shared, only stewarded. There are instructions meant to be obeyed, never broadcast. There are promises meant to anchor you, not entertain others. And there are battles God intends to win privately, so He alone receives glory. When you speak prematurely, you move into a realm of explanation, and explanation invites judgment, comparison, interference, and emotional pressure. Suddenly you are managing reactions instead of nurturing alignment. Suddenly, you are responding to opinions instead of resting in obedience. Suddenly, you are defending what God had planned to deliver. Heaven never asked you to defend your destiny. Heaven never appointed you as the spokesperson for what God is still forming. Heaven never instructed you to convince anyone of what He already decreed. Protection from premature speech is protection from unauthorized burdens, because words create responsibilities. Once spoken, people expect updates, proof, progress, manifestation, timelines. And many of you have exhausted spiritual pregnancies by letting the crowd manage them. But God says, close your mouth so I can finish my work. Because what is coming cannot survive public pressure in embryonic form. It must first be fortified, established, rooted, completed. There is also this mystery. Demons cannot read your thoughts, but they track your words. They cannot access your inner life, but they monitor your speech. Your mouth is a gate. and many have unknowingly opened gates to surveillance, delay, and unnecessary resistance through careless declarations. This is not fear. This is government. Heaven operates with intelligence. And one of the highest forms of spiritual intelligence is discretion. To know what to carry alone, what to carry with God, what to share with the wise, and what to never place in common air. God often hides his greatest works in the most ordinary-looking silence. While others assume nothing is happening, heaven is architecting outcomes. While others hear no testimony, angels are executing assignments. While others see no movement, foundations are being poured. But when you announce too soon, you invite opinions into processes that were never meant to host them. You invite emotions into matters that require purity. You invite distractions into spaces that require focus. And you invite warfare into wombs. Goddess instruction to remain silent is not denial. It is not suppression. It is not punishment. It is protection. Protection from speaking fear. Protection from speaking impatience. Protection from speaking distortion. Protection from speaking your interpretation instead of his intention. Because even positive words spoken too early can create misalignment. Not every truth is timely. Not every vision is ripe. Not every revelation is ready. Timing is what turns truth into power, and silence preserves timing. There are some victories that only arrive intact when they arrive quietly. Some breakthroughs must first exist without witnesses. Some miracles must be completed before they are narrated. Some doors must fully open before they are described, or else people try to enter spaces God is still sanctifying, and you become responsible for managing traffic instead of inhabiting promise. So heaven says, be quiet. Let me complete this. Let me finish shaping this. Let me close every gap. Let me resolve every layer. Let me handle every adversary. Let me establish every detail before you speak it into the atmosphere. Protection from premature speech is also protection from self-sabotage, because in unguarded moments, mouths release inner conflicts, doubts, contradictions, mixed faith, hidden fears. And words carry creative power even when they are careless. So God seals your mouth to stabilize your inner world, to allow belief to settle, to let clarity rise, to let faith mature without being contradicted by emotion. Silence aligns the tongue with the spirit, so when speech returns, it carries authority instead of uncertainty, weight instead of wish, clarity instead of chaos. Heaven is teaching you to speak from completion, not anticipation, from testimony, not hope, from establishment, not construction. Because words spoken from completion carry finality. They do not invite interference. They announce outcomes. They close cycles. They release glory. Chosen ones, there are things forming in your life that will shock those who underestimated you, but they will only shock them if they are not warned, if they are not pre-exposed, if they are not diluted through months of premature narration. God wants the reveal to speak, not the rehearsal. So guard your mouth. Rest your explanations. Withdraw your need to update. Release your urge to justify, because heaven is protecting you from yourself, from others, and from unseen adversaries. And when the time comes to speak, you will not speak of what might be. You will speak of what is. And your words will carry the weight of something God himself has finished. Chosen ones, there is a realm of God that cannot be accessed by force, volume, or striving. It is entered through stillness. It is perceived through surrender. It is understood through sensitivity. And in this hour, heaven is refining your inner senses so you may move, hear, and discern at levels you have not known before. Spiritual sensitivity is not emotion. It is perception. It is the awakened ability of the inner being to register heaven's movements before the natural mind can explain them. It is the language of those who no longer need external proof to recognize divine activity. It is the faculty through which God whispers and destinies shift. And make no mistake, heightened sensitivity always precedes expanded assignment. God never increases authority without first increasing discernment. He never enlarges influence without refining perception. He never promotes without purifying the inner hearing. Because power without sensitivity becomes destruction, and authority without discernment becomes error. So heaven begins to quiet you, not to weaken you, but to tune you. Because every realm of God has a frequency, and noise disrupts reception, distraction distorts signal, and ungoverned emotion creates static. When outer noise decreases, inner awareness increases. When conversations fall away, perception sharpens. When mental clutter clears, spiritual impressions become readable. You are not losing interest in the world. You are gaining awareness of the unseen. You are not becoming distant. You are becoming discerning. Heightened spiritual sensitivity means your spirit is learning to lead instead of follow, to register before it reacts, to sense before it decides, to perceive before it speaks. It is the maturation of your inner government, where the spirit takes its rightful seat, and the soul learns to listen, and the flesh relinquishes control. You may notice changes, your tolerance for chaos shrinking, your appetite for surface conversation fading, your attraction to certain atmospheres increasing, your discomfort in spaces you once endured, your sudden awareness of undercurrents in people, not just words. This is not isolation. This is filtration. Heaven is training your nervous system to respond to spiritual information, because God communicates in impressions before explanations, in nudges before narratives, in weight before words, in light before language. Heightened sensitivity allows you to recognize when heaven enters a room before anyone says his name. It allows you to sense danger before evidence appears, to feel alignment before opportunity manifests, to detect contamination before it reaches your core, to recognize divine timing before doors open. This sensitivity is not mystical. It is governmental. It is how prophets know, how intercessors feel, how watchmen discern, how leaders protect, how the chosen navigate. Without this sensitivity, one is left to reason, pattern, and assumption. With it, one is led, and God is raising you from reasoning into leading, from analyzing into aligning, from interpreting into perceiving, because the next dimension of your walk will require decisions made before data exists, movements executed before confirmation arrives, withdrawals initiated before damage occurs, and alignments embraced before explanation is available. Only heightened spiritual sensitivity can govern that realm. Silence sharpens sensitivity because it removes competition. Your spirit does not compete well with noise. It is not loud. It is precise. It does not shout. It registers. And when your life is full of voices, opinions, information, stimulation, and constant expression, the spirit is drowned, not silenced, but ignored. So God reduces volume, external volume, internal volume, relational volume, digital volume, mental volume, so the still, small, accurate movements of heaven can finally be recognized without strain. And once recognized, they become familiar. And once familiar, they become trusted. And once trusted, they become your primary guidance system. Heightened sensitivity also makes you dangerous to darkness, because darkness relies on ignorance. It advances through unawareness. It feeds on delayed perception. It grows where discernment is absent. But when sensitivity is activated, intrusion is detected early. Compromise is noticed quickly. Deception is uncomfortable immediately, and misalignment cannot rest. So the enemy loses the advantage of surprise. He loses the luxury of slow corruption. He loses the ability to hide in familiarity, because your spirit now recognizes what your eyes may not, and responds to what your mind has not yet processed. Heightened spiritual sensitivity also brings emotional sanctification. You will begin to feel when something is spiritually heavy, even if it looks good. When something is spiritually light, even if it looks difficult. When something carries peace, even if it requires sacrifice. When something carries danger, even if it offers reward. This is the education of desire, where you no longer want by appetite alone, but by discernment, where attraction is filtered through alignment, and opportunity is weighed against assignment. This sensitivity saves years. It prevents unnecessary entanglements. It exposes hidden costs. It reveals invisible favor. It allows you to move through life guided by divine intuition rather than human impulse. Heightened sensitivity also deepens communion. You will notice prayer shifting from speech to awareness, from talking to listening, from asking to aligning, from effort to presence. God will begin to communicate more through atmosphere than through articulation, through impressions rather than instructions, through inner adjustments rather than external signs, and you will understand him. Because sensitivity is the language heaven speaks. Heaven does not shout, heaven resonates. Heaven releases knowing. Heaven transmits weight. Heaven imparts clarity, and a sensitive spirit can read these transmissions, while a noisy soul demands translation. So God trains you to feel his pleasure, to sense his restraint, to recognize his grief, to perceive his approval, to notice his withdrawal, before circumstances ever change. This sensitivity keeps you from outrunning him, from lagging behind him, from working against him, from misunderstanding him. You will begin to recognize when God is saying wait without a word, when he is saying move without pressure, when he is saying stop without fear, when he is saying trust without explanation. Because sensitivity translates heaven's silence, it is also preparation for stewardship. What God is placing into your life next will require discernment more than strength, awareness more than ambition, sensitivity more than strategy, because it will involve people and influence and timing and hidden factors and spiritual currents and unseen negotiations. And only a sensitive spirit can navigate such territory without harm. So heaven sharpens your inner sight, clarifies your inner hearing, refines your inner touch, until you can sense shifts before they surface, detect seasons before they announce, feel danger before it approaches, recognize favor before it manifests, and know God is near without needing proof. Chosen ones, this heightened spiritual sensitivity is not a phase. It is an upgrade. It is God entrusting you with finer perception, because you are approaching finer assignments. Do not dull it with noise. Do not override it with logic. Do not betray it with impulse. Honor it, protect it, practice stillness, because this sensitivity will become your greatest protection, your clearest compass, and your most accurate guide. And through it, heaven will lead you in ways words never could. Chosen ones, heaven does not announce its greatest movements with gradual sound. Its most powerful interventions often arrive as suddenness. What looks to the natural mind like an instant change is in truth the visible unveiling of long invisible preparation. Sudden breakthrough is never sudden in heaven. It is sudden only on earth. And I speak to you now because what you are experiencing, the quiet, the restraint, the waiting, the inner recalibration, is not stagnation. It is staging. Heaven is staging you, because breakthroughs that come suddenly must find a vessel already shaped to contain them. God does not release acceleration into unprepared structures. He does not pour abundance into unstable foundations. He does not unveil influence where identity is still fractured. He does not open gates where discipline is absent. So before suddenness appears, preparation deepens. And before movement manifests, heaven stills you. Because sudden breakthrough is not merely an event. It is an invasion, an interruption of old patterns, a collapse of former limits, an override of previous ceilings, and such invasions require spiritual infrastructure. So God builds it quietly, in the unseen, in the ordinary, in the still. You may feel as though nothing is happening because nothing visible is happening. But heaven is not working in visibility right now. It is working in capacity, expanding what you can hold, stabilizing what you can carry, strengthening what you can steward. Because the next door will not open gradually. It will open at once, and what enters with it will require immediate governance. Sudden breakthrough changes environment. It changes perception. It changes relationships. It changes expectations. It changes responsibility. It shifts spiritual pressure, and many are broken not by hardship, but by blessing. Not by opposition, but by opportunity. Not by famine, but by overflow. So God prepares you so that when the breakthrough arrives, it does not become a burden. He trains you to remain rooted when speed increases, centered when attention comes, humble when doors open, clear when choices multiply. Because suddenness tests identity. It exposes maturity. It reveals whether the vessel is ruled by purpose or by appetite. Heaven's preparation often feels like restraint because it is removing what cannot go with you. Old reactions, old dependencies, old motivations, old narratives, old emotional reflexes. old survival habits. Because what protected you in lack will sabotage you in abundance. What sustained you in obscurity will contaminate you in exposure. What stabilized you in waiting may not govern you in fulfillment. So God revises you. He detoxes your ambition. He purifies your expectations. He refines your desires. He reorders your loves, until what you want will not compete with what He releases. Sudden breakthrough also magnifies. It amplifies what is already present. If peace is present, it multiplies. If pride is present, it multiplies. If clarity is present, it multiplies. If insecurity is present, it multiplies. So heaven does not rush. It prepares, because God is more committed to who you become than to what you receive. And the coming breakthrough is not primarily about changing your situation. It is about unveiling your position, revealing what heaven has been building in you. Sudden breakthrough is often preceded by internal stillness, because God is anchoring you, teaching you to live from alignment instead of anticipation, from obedience instead of outcome, from communion instead of craving, so that when the breakthrough comes, it does not become your source. God remains your source, because when breakthrough becomes source, it becomes idol, and idols always eventually enslave. So God ensures that before He gives you something suddenly, He has already become everything consistently. Heaven is also preparing you for the shock of answered prayer. Many prayed for change, but few are trained for it. They want new doors but are not ready for new demands. They want elevation but are not ready for visibility. They want provision but are not ready for management. They want influence but are not ready for warfare. They want favor but are not ready for filtering. Sudden breakthrough introduces new adversaries, new levels of spiritual attention, new expectations from others, new internal pressures, and without preparation, people retreat from what they begged for. So God teaches you to carry peace before He changes conditions, to govern emotion before He shifts environment, to master reaction before He alters circumstance. So when the breakthrough comes, you stand, not stumble, not scatter, not self-destruct, but steward, because breakthrough is not a moment, it is a mantle, and mantles require maturity. Heaven is also aligning timing. Sudden breakthroughs are synchronized. They connect to people, places, and opportunities that must all be positioned at once. And God will hold you in preparation until the entire pattern is ready, until doors and keys coexist, until needs and provision meet, until assignments and resources align, until your capacity and the demand intersect. So delays are not denials. They are coordination. Heaven coordinating variables you cannot see. While you are being prepared, others are being moved. Systems are being adjusted. Hearts are being turned. Authorities are being repositioned. Resources are being relocated. Conflicts are being resolved. And resistances are being dismantled. All so that when heaven releases the breakthrough, it does not leak. It lands. Sudden breakthrough also requires speed. And speed without grounding produces destruction. So God grounds you now, in silence, in obedience, in hiddenness, in inner strengthening, in unseen consistency, so that when acceleration arrives, you do not lose direction, so that when momentum increases, you do not lose discernment, so that when doors swing open, you do not forget who you are, because sudden breakthrough removes excuses, it removes waiting, it removes postponement. It removes the comfort of not yet, and suddenly, you are responsible. Suddenly, you are visible. Suddenly, you are deciding. Suddenly, you are stewarding. Suddenly, you are leading. So God prepares you to live without delay, to function without rehearsal, to govern without training wheels, to move without panic. Heaven's preparation also heals what would fracture under blessing: old wounds, hidden insecurities, unresolved bitterness, fear of loss, fear of success, fear of visibility, fear of responsibility. Because breakthrough presses on what is not healed, it exposes what was buried. So God heals in advance, stabilizes in advance, affirms in advance. So you do not seek from the breakthrough what only God can supply. Chosen ones, what is coming will not grow slowly. It will arrive formed. It will appear functioning. It will manifest carrying momentum, and you will step into something already moving, already prepared, already scheduled, already empowered, and the only reason you will not be overwhelmed is because heaven prepared you while nothing seemed to be happening. So do not despise this season. Do not rush this quiet. Do not misinterpret this restraint. It is the final shaping before unveiling, the last fortification before acceleration, the closing instruction before release, because sudden breakthrough is near, and when it comes, you will recognize it, not by chaos, not by confusion, not by fear, but by resonance, because what heaven releases will match what heaven has been preparing in you, and you will not chase it. You will step into it, ready,